Today I'm going to show you how to manually load firmware onto your iConnectivity interface using your DAW, whatever DAW you're using. So today I'm going to use Ableton Live, but you should be able to use any DAW to set this up. The settings may vary for your MIDI out information, but that will depend on your DAW. So what we're going to need is we're going to need a version of the firmware from iConnectivity.com/firmware. Put that link in the description. Today I'm going to use the Play Audio 12 to load firmware on, and I currently have the Play Audio 12 into Bootloader mode. If you don't know how to put your interface into Bootloader mode, then check out the link in the video and articles in the description. So like I said, my Play Audio 12 is already in Bootloader mode, so I'm going to open up Ableton Live. Now the reason you might want to actually manually load this is maybe you tried to load firmware and it failed for some reason. Maybe you weren't connected to the internet and it didn't get the file correctly. So if you're stuck in bootloader mode, usually they'll be indicated by two lights going back and forth. This is a great way to manually load it, especially if you had troubles loading it for some reason with one of our softwares. You can always manually load it. It's also a great way to downgrade if you need. All right, so in Ableton here, I just have one MIDI strip right here. I'm gonna hit Control period, and that should bring me, Control comma. On the Windows, it's Command comma on the Mac. So set up your whatever audio you have set up, even if it's just built-in. I have set it up with the Audio iConnectivity driver, just so we have an audio option, because the playhead in Ableton will not move if you don't have audio set up. I'm going to go into my link/MIDI, and what I want to do is I don't care about the input at all. You can see the Play Audio loader right there. I just want to go to the output, and the only thing I need on is track if you're in Ableton. Sync is clock information from Ableton, which it definitely doesn't need, or it doesn't need any control information from the remote. So we just need to play the track. So what we're going to do is that firmware file downloaded as a MIDI file or .mid file. That can be loaded into any DAW or any MIDI player at all. So it might actually show like it can play from a different software than you're wanting to use. So don't just double click the firmware, as it'll open up any software that the computer decided it wanted to connect to. So what we want to do is I'm actually going to hit tab. I'm going to go into arrangement view just because it's easier to see. I'm going to go find my file here, so it's in my downloads, and there's my Play Audio 12 firmware file. I'm just going to drag that into the timeline here. And it says import tempo and signature. I'm just going to say yes. So now that everything's set up, I just need to pick my MIDI out, because we're going to send it out to the PA12 loader or Play Audio 12 loader. And the channel doesn't really matter. And we're just going to hit play. Now once this whole file plays through, I usually just wait till it gets right to the end of the clip here. Make sure that last little bit of information goes in. Once it gets to the end, I hit stop. We're going to power off the interface, which you can either take the power out or press and hold the knob until it powers down, and then press the knob again to power back up. This should just take a few seconds, and once that's all done, you will have your firmware loaded onto your interface. This is also a great way if you're on a really old version of the firmware. It's a great way to get to the newest version without having to kind of step up. Depending on your interface, this could take a different amount of time, but for the Play Audio 12, it's not too bad. Definitely like the Mio XL, it takes a little bit longer because it has a lot of presets and a lot of ports. So you can see I ran right to the end of it. I hit the stop button. Now I'm just going to turn the device off and then back on. So in my situation, I just pulled out the power and plugged it back in, as that was easily accessible for me. And now it looks like it has normal lighting on the front. You can see that we got a weird circle here because Ableton's very confused that the device is no longer seen, so we're not going to save that. So I've closed that out, and now if I open Ableton back up, you should see all the ports now from the play audio 12. So go to options, preferences, and you can see all the different ports are now in here for the play audio 12, and we don't see that that loader mode anymore. And if you want to verify your firmware version, you can always go to Oracle X. And once that's open, we can click the little I here, this little information. And it should give us the firmware version. I loaded 2.2.1, which is the current version that I downloaded from the website. So that's how you would do that. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know.